we've been working for a long time on an anti-aging program and platform. I have the quotes here. I'm sure you saw the quotes, right? The reason for the quotes is because, like, what is anti-aging, right? Like, I mean, oh my gosh, you want to talk about a catch-all term that means nothing? Like, that's a good one. That's a really good one, right? We are chronologically aging at the same rate, all of us, all the time. Every pass around the sun, we add another candle, right? It's the same. What we're not doing is we're not all biologically decaying at the same rate. And that's really where the two overlaps in anti-aging create like a separation. You look at someone like Cher or Demi Moore or Madonna, right? They look a lot different from other women who are similar age. And usually, like, people in their 20s to late 20s, early 30s, they all look the same, right? Oh yeah, I just put on some skis, let's go skiing, let's go for a jog. Hey, an hour of volleyball on the beach, I can do that. 50s, not the same. 60s, not the same. King Leonidas from the Spartans, you remember, like, the 300, the battle at Thermopylae, this was a battle that was saving the entire Greek civilization. They had to stop an advancing army at the battle at Thermopylae, at the pass at Thermopylae. They're not going to send the schlubs. They're not going to send third string out. They're sending out their starters. He was 60 years old when he led that army, right? The reason that I bring that up is because at 60, he was still physically and physiologically formidable enough that he was able to lead an army to protect his entire civilization. So when we hit chronological age milestones, it doesn't mean that we're supposed to be decaying, right? We've become accustomed to decay. Oh, menopause, hot flash, that's what we do.
Stop.
Right? Oh my gosh, osteoporosis when I'm older. Here, Bridget's in. So hold on a second. I'm just gonna... Hello? Oh, come right on in.
Sorry,
Bridget,
I didn't factor in for...
That's okay. You know what? I'm going to ask for you to come.
Okay.
Bridget, can you hear us?
I think you're on mute.
I'm on mute?
Can't hear you.
Okay, hold on. Can you hear me?
Computer
Hold on.
silence.
Wait a second. Can you hear me now? I'm joking. I wasn't even speaking then. Hold on. Let's see.
I can read lips, but that's about it.
All right. Give me a moment. I'm going to get you a chair.
Okay, well, I can get one. Don't worry about it. You figure that out.
Let me see if I can find my mic. Hold on. Let me see if I can choose a different mic. Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
All right. Very, very good. Okay. So I'm going to move this over here. Can you still see me?
I can.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna have you can sit in the corner over here. This way it's a little easier for you.
Okay.
And then this way you're not in. Okay, good. And you can still see us? Or me at least. You can hear?
I can see you, yes.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. I believe we're recording too. Did it let you know we're recording?
It did.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, great. So I'm just gonna catch you up to where we were. We really didn't start much. I was just going over the back. Hello, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too.
Thanks. I was just going over the background of why we're doing what we're doing and the nature of what we're doing, how we chronologically age different from how we decay over time, right? So, and which is really just two totally different things. So and then I'm just going to back up a little bit. Both of you heard this. So we really appreciate you doing this with us. We've had a long track record of doing anti-aging work or reducing degenerative change over time in humans on a one-on-one basis. we're putting together a program that is deliverable to many people at once, because a lot of the things that we do, it's the same thing over and over and over. So what we're doing is we're taking that general information, putting it into a streamline so that we can then focus an individual approach on each person, so that the amount of time we're working is all individual based, whereas instead of 3% of it's individual based, because all the rest of the stuff has to get through, right? The way that the human body changes over time is associated with stress. There is nothing else that we can say influences the human body. There are 3 types of stressors that we talk about. And in chiropractic, we call it the 3 T's. It's thoughts, traumas, and toxins, right? So the first one that I'm going to discuss are traumas. And traumas are either macro or micro traumas. They're either physical, thermal, right? So we could have trauma from UV light hitting us and burning our skin. We could have trauma from a fire or something hot burning our skin. Most of the trauma that we're accustomed to understanding are macro traumas. You fall and twist an ankle. You create some sort of an injury because you banged into a door on the shoulder. That's a macro trauma. That's a stressor that creates damage to the body. The more common one, though, is our micro trauma. We're constantly texting these poor thumbs, right? We're constantly texting this poor neck, right? We're constantly doing activities where we're, who sits like this sometimes, right? These are all micro traumas. Over time. As the twig is bent, so grows the tree. The stressor that we have are toxins. And we're going to define toxins as anything environmental that impacts us on a chemical level. So trauma is more of a structure, like I can see and touch and feel. Chemical toxin is more of on a physiological, I would need a microscope to see that. And these toxins come from the foods we eat and those substances that we call foods that we put in our mouth, chew and swallow, that aren't really foods. These toxins come from our environmental exposure, what we're breathing. They might come from fillings we've had in our mouth. They might come from, I just had to get a test at the doctor and they put dye in me for an image, right? So whatever the toxins are, these are also stressors. And then the third form of stressor is our thoughts. And it's our emotional tone. And human beings are not built to carry a high level of chronic stress all of the time. We are not built for that. We're built for stress and then periods of no stress. Stress and periods of no stress. We're all old enough here to remember, because we're all 29. We can remember when we were kids on a long car trip. Do you remember what you did sitting in the back seat? You just sat and thought.
Counting cows.
Count cow, like there was
license plate game or argue with your brothers.
There wasn't much that we did, right? And these were stress-free times. Now, there were people that had stress, like you grew up in an abusive home, you didn't have food on the table. Like I'm not discussing. I'm talking about general life stressors. We had distinct downtimes from stress during our lives that we just don't see so much anymore.
No.
Right? We have geopolitical stressors. I mean, we have multiple wars going on. We have significant discord in our political situation in the United States. We have to get on 95 and drive.
Oh,
my email has at least 1,000 unread messages in my inbox. Right? Like there's just so many things coming at us all the time. These stressors create chemical change and physical change in the body. I'm not going to go into in depth in what those chemical and physical changes are, but we see cortisol. You mentioned hormonal changes. Mm-hmm. We see changes in neuroregulatory pathways. We see changes in our sleep pattern. It creates an inability for the body to repair the way it needs to. And when we talk about the effect of stress on the body, we're going to discuss it in the body's ability to repair and recover. Because that's what creates, again, here's the air quotes, the aging, right? The decay over time is our inability to repair. And you can look at this like a home that it's constantly being kept up, like, oh my gosh, it looks great, versus somebody who doesn't upkeep their home, the home looks degenerative over time. And this is our home, well, not yours, but this is my home, and you each have your own home, right? And that's how do we keep it up? It's through our repair mechanism. There are very specific, simple ways that we create better repair in the body. In the office, when we talk about chiropractic, we use the acronym DREAM. And the A in DREAM is the autonomic and peripheral nervous system, keeping the communication system of the body open so that the body can control and regulate everything that happens. We're not going to be discussing the autonomic and peripheral nervous system control and regulatory pathways here for this, because this program is specifically built around things that you do on your own, right? For autonomic peripheral nervous system, you need a chiropractor to help you, right? If you have a corn on the bottom of the foot, you need somebody to help you shave it off, right? These are things that we're going to work. So we're going to talk about the other components of DREAM, the D-R-E, the A is the, and then the autonomic, and then the M. So we're going to do this. D. The first one that we do is diet. And we lead with diet because what we put into our mouth and chew and swallow is what we're going to then use to repair. If I want to build a skyscraper and someone drops off Elmer's glue and styrofoam, I'm not building anything. If someone drops off concrete and high quality steel, I'm able to build, right? If I put a Twinkie in my mouth versus a handful of spinach, there's a difference in my basic building materials. The second one we talk about is repair. And I used to use the term, and I still do use the term all the time here, R for rest, because that's when we repair. Rejuvenation, recovery, right? These are the times that our body utilizes the resources from our diet to repair, rebuild, to make that tissue whole and healthy again. We use exercise, E-X-E-R-C-I-S-E. We use exercise to tell the body where we need to repair and how we keep things moving. Exercise is a necessary component because without exercise, we're not telling the body what our needs are. In third grade, in like April, May, I could remember Mrs. Bosher in third grade, she said, okay, kids, what do we need for the classroom? We need to order some stuff. And we're like, what do you mean? Like, it's almost summer. Well, we don't need any pennies. She said, no, if I don't spend every penny that they give me in my budget, this is back in the 70s when teachers had budgets, right? So if we don't spend every penny we had in the budget, we don't get that same budget next year.
Yeah.
So we need to spend it all. If we don't exercise, if we don't spend what we have in our budget, our body, our body is a biological system. Biological systems tend toward laziness and conservation. If I'm not using the muscle, I don't need to build the muscle. If I'm not using the bone, I don't need to build the bone. If I'm not using my cardiovascular, I don't need it, right? So I'm going to reduce and reduce and reduce. The exercise is what tells our body what we need to be doing to utilize the diet to where we're going to repair. I'm going to put the A up here because the A is the autonomic nervous system, peripheral nervous system, right? The fifth one is our mental health. And when we talk about mental health, we can go down many, many different rabbit holes for what is mental health and what isn't mental health. For this concept here, we're going to discuss how our mental status affects our overall health and well-being. It's very much integrated in who we are and what we do. We live in a society today where we're very much alone compared to where we were 400 or 500 years ago. We have a lot of Facebook friends where we're friendly, but we don't have a lot of friends as compared to. We don't have that same sense of community. We don't have that same sense of purpose. We don't have people with whom we can talk about and chat about ideas and not get hostile with each other. This then creates a mental change that has a significant negative effect upon what we do as we live. There are very specific actions and activities that we can engage in that will improve our mental health and our mental state. we don't all have to have the same type of environmental interaction with other individuals. Some people need more friends, some people need fewer friends, but we all need to have mental calmness and stillness. We all need to have purpose. We all need to have direction. And something that we all need to have, and in my opinion, it's very important, is we need to have personal wins, right? We've really almost removed the personal win. You give every child a trophy at the end of soccer season, nobody stands out as a personal win. I can remember I was speaking to my cousin a couple of years ago, and he was talking about, he's like, oh, I'm just really down and depressed. He had this dead tree in his backyard. I'm like, go to Home Depot, buy a chainsaw and cut down the tree. He's like, my wife won't let me. I'm like, well, then do it anyway, right? So he was like, I had the best day I've ever had, right? Because you create a personal win. And who, like, after you do something, like I finished a crossword, yes, right? It's those personal wins that create. These personal wins that we're going to manufacture are not all going to be based on, but are going to be bolstered by and supported by our dietary wins, our recuperation repair wins, and our exercise wins. So together, this is what's going to create the base foundation for what we're doing. Where we're going to, any questions? You look a little bit like you had to pose a question. Oh, is it overwhelming?
No, I can't wait to see where you're going to go with this.
Right, so, yeah, me too.
Notes, or will this...
No.
So I think I can
I'm
remember
taking it all in.
Yeah, so most of what we're going to be doing, and like this is a great question, should you be taking notes?
Yeah.
Most of what we're going to be doing when we're working is conceptualization, changing thought patterns, changing process of thinking and directional, and then incorporating those changes into your life, right? So there is a little bit of a Tony Robbins, like, wow, stand on your chair, well, right? And the reason that happens is because we're creating a little bit of a mental shift. Like, oh my gosh, I can now see a new avenue has opened up for me, right? It is, I can assure you that Tony Robbins is great. Like, if you've ever seen him, it's fantastic.
I
Like,
just went to the whole thing. Did you? I just went to
Did
this
you?
whole
Oh, yeah.
thing.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. But, and this is nothing against Tony Robbins, like nothing against the role, but he'll fill up a stadium, let's say 10,000 people.
Yeah.
We're going to see 9,997 unsuccess stories, right? And there are 3 success stories because the motivation is key, but it does not create a change unless you open that door, walk through, and do those steps that are required for success. I've done this long enough to know that if you do not want to have the mindset, but you do those successful steps, you're going to get success anyway. You're going to get success anyway. If you're like, I have a mindset of it's not going to work, right? But I'm still going to do the dietary aspect. I'm still going to do the rest and repair. I'm still going to do the exercise. I'm still going to do the mental health. Oh my gosh, it's still going to work. It's still going to work, right? And this is something we see in chiropractic. Sometimes some people say, well, I don't believe in it. It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Well, what about, an animal that doesn't believe in chiropractic gets an adjustment, all of a sudden the arm works again. Like, there's no belief there. It just works, right? It just works. So this is what we're going to be focusing on, right? So I'm going to erase these here. Most people want to create an overwhelming response in one day or 1 week. We always will overestimate what we can do in a day or a week, and we underestimate what we can do in a month or a year. If it takes us until April to finally get all of these things clicking, is it going to matter in 2027? Is it going to matter 7 years from now? Right? Like, it's not going to matter between now and then. So as long as we're constantly on that, climbing bit by bit, making small little changes, right? When I'm in the office, I tell patients, make one change every 3 weeks. We're going to do it faster because we're in a program that's faster. But one change every 3 weeks translates into 17 new things next year. It translates into 170 new things in a decade. If I asked you to do 17 new things today, it would be overwhelming. But if you're like, 10 years from now, I'm doing 170 new things for my health, you're crushing it. You're really, really crushing it, all right? So from a dietary aspect, I'm going to, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I'm going to ask a question. Everybody can stay quiet, and then I'm going to give the response that I usually hear, right? So, you don't have to answer out loud. What does your diet look like? We're going to think. And this is the response I get. Okay, well, I mostly eat clean. I try not to eat a lot of red meat. I skip breakfast. And then most people go through a litany of things that they don't do, right? I don't do this, I don't do that, I don't do this. Because when I ask, what does your diet look like? The first thing that we gird up, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be judged in a second. So I need to start really defending what I'm doing, because our dietary choices are part of who we are. And if I don't like your dietary choices, I don't like you, right? That's what it is. Whereas if I ask you, well, what does your backyard look like? Oh, well, I have a lot of pavers out there. I have some grass. There are 2 trees. You're going to describe to me what your backyard looks like. What's in the trunk of your car? Oh, right now I have let's say I have a spare tire in there, right? What does your diet look like? Oh, well, for breakfast, I eat boom, boom, boom. For lunch, I eat boom, boom, boom. That's what our diet looks like. And unless we can define what our diet looks like, we can't begin to define how we can change our diet. So the first action step for this program is utilizing the Practice Better app to track your diet. When I say some, it's a small percentage of patients that we do this with, track their diet by entering all of their food choices. If you'd like to do that, it's good to do. I encourage you to do that because it'll enable us to track your total fiber intake, your total protein intake. These are things we're going to be addressing in the future. Vitamin and nutrient intake, right? But it's overwhelming to do that sometimes in the beginning, and it's a lot of work.
Especially if you're like making your own salad or something.
Oh, it's a lot of work.
I tried this a few months ago with a friend of mine, like keeping each other on task. It was like a food diary, and by the end of like the 3rd day, I'm like, ah!
It's a lot of work. But what you can do, and you can do much more simply, and the app allows you to do this, the Practice Better app allows you to do this, is take pictures of your food and just put them in. Because now when we go back and we review our diet, we can then, because it's going to take 5-10 minutes to review our diet, but we can look at the foods. Okay, I have a general idea of what I'm eating. I have a general idea of how much of it is, and we're going to go over in a moment what we're going to be eating, right? But how much of it is this, how much of it is that, how much, right? What we're going to be looking for at this stage going forward is an understanding of whole food, processed food, and ultra-processed food, right? This is the biggest concept when we talk about dietary habits. If we can just remove the ultra-processed food from our diet, we are going to have a significant change in how we rebuild, repair, and decay. The ultra-processed food is killing us bit by bit, right? It's not the only, but right now it's a foundation of the pyramid upon which we're building, right? So I'm going to spend just 2-3 minutes going over some concepts here. So I'm going to run through a couple of slides. These slides will be available to you. You do not have to memorize them, right? I'm going to go through them relatively quickly because you'll be like, I get it, right? Whole foods are not ultra processed. They're not found in packages or boxes. They're not filled with additives. A processed food and a whole food, you can recognize this. They're in its natural form. The cellular structure is intact. I can look at a potato and I can recognize it as a potato. I can look at potato bread or potato chips. I don't know if that was made with white wheat flour. I don't know if it was made with potato. It might have been made with sawdust. I don't know. The cellular structure is no longer intact. I can look at a chicken breast. It's not the same as chicken sausage, right? When we talk about processing, the only way that I can eat an unprocessed apple is if I go to an orchard, I pull down the branch and I take a bite of it while it's still on the, as soon as I pick it, it's processed, right? But how much are we worried about? It's the mechanical processing that you could do in your kitchen is okay. if it's mechanically or thermally processed in a way that you can't, I'm going to be sharing these slides with you. So if it's mechanically processed or heat processed in a way that you can't do in your kitchen, it doesn't work, right? When we talk about nothing bad was added, we don't have sugar, chemical, refined oils, preservatives, or refined foods. Nothing bad was added, nothing good was taken out. It's fruits, it's vegetables, beans, legumes, grains, nuts, seeds, spices, and herbs. These are really important, spices and herbs, right? Chicken, fish, meat. Well, what about organic? What about grass-fed? What about heirloom? These are concepts that we're going to discuss after you've learned how to change your approach to food, processed and unprocessed. We have to walk before we run. We have to crawl before we walk, right? Some of you are already doing some of this. Some of you aren't, right? I know that none of you now are tracking your foods, and I can assure you that I can tear up whatever you're eating to some degree, just like you can tear up what I'm eating. You can tear up what I'm eating. I'm not perfect by any means. Eggs and dairy, right? Well, dairy's not good for you. What about lactose? What about the hormones? We're talking about whole food versus unprocessed at this point, right? Just because you're eating plant-based doesn't mean you're eating whole food, right? Plant-based, coming from a plant that's grown in the ground. These are whole food, relatively plant-based. There's some olive oil, some chocolate, right? These are plant-based, but they're not whole food, right? Plant-based. I get Hershey syrup on a Ritz cracker with a Pop-Tart. That's plant-based, right? It's not whole food.
My
right?
sister-in-law calls it being a pastatarian.
Yeah.
People that are
And-
vegetarians don't necessarily eat
No.
healthy. Yeah.
When I was in college, one of my best friends was a vegetarian, and they would go to Subway and they would get a sub sandwich with all the vegetables and then a bag of Doritos and on top, and that was, with mayonnaise. Like, why am I so sick? Right? Plant-based, not whole food, right? This is an indicator. If you see a label, the chances are it's not a whole food, right? The chances are it's not a whole food. If you see added sugar, I can assure you it's not a whole food, right? Well, what about the added oils? What are the oils, right? We're going to be going down all these rabbit holes. Whole food, not whole food. Ultra processed food. Well, we just talked about cheese and butter. Well, sometimes you look at a cheese and it'll say pasteurized processed cheese food. Have you ever seen that on there?
Yeah.
The reason that they put that on there is because it's not real chease.
Right.
They have to label it as
Has
such,
cheese
right?
in it and stuff.
Yeah.
Is Land O'Lakes spreadable butter, is that butter? No, it's got canola oil in it, right? So, not that all butter, right? Generally recognized as whole foods. Well, what about the French fries? What about the potatoes? What about the wrap on here? Everything we talk about whole food and what we're eating is on a spectrum. We do not let perfection be the enemy of the good, right? I'm going to show you that in a moment. Whole food can be convenient. Oh, I don't have the time to buy and chop up and prepare. I buy things that go bad in the fridge. Then start buying prepped whole foods.
Like
It's-
a bag salad.
Yeah. Is it as good as growing it in your backyard? No. But every dollar you spend on a healthier food is $3 you don't spend on medical intervention later, right? So it's more important to spend there. Some foods seem like whole food, like olive oil and orange juice, but they're not. There's some degree of processing, right? But how much processing are we worried about and concerned about? It's all on a spectrum like this. Apple Puff Snacks and Apple Cinnamon Crunch cereal, it's not an apple slice, right? Homemade apple nut bread. Oh, I picked wheat in the backyard. We ground it in the kitchen. We make, right? Can we argue that that's unhealthy? Well, compared to what? It's an unhealthy compared to what? The poison is in the dose, right? Vegan, I throw this up here because vegan tells us what we don't eat. Whole food tells us what we do eat. Lots of whole plants. This is not a vegan diet, but we tend to gravitate toward lots of whole plants in the diet. Whole food plant-based minimize the negative health effects associated with standard American diet or the SAD diet, right? So we have here inflammation. I'm not exercising because it hurts. Depression, it affects my mental state. Reduced physical activity, and my rest is then going to be repaired. Poor dietary choices lead to obesity, that do all this. So it really affects everything on that list, okay? You can't do 100% whole food, then you do for 90%. You can't do 90%, you do 80%. You can't do 80%, you do better next month than you did last month, right? You do better the following month. First, understand what's whole food. Second, identify whole foods in restaurants and stores. And third, incorporate it into your diet, right? That's what we're going to be doing here. I have just a minute to answer the question. I actually have to leave for another appointment. We're going to be meeting for about a half hour concept. You're going to get these slides. You're going to go over them. And then when we meet together virtually on Saturday, we're going to be discussing how this is integrated into our life, okay? Your homework today is identify everything in your mouth that's processed and not whole food over the next several days. Identifying everything in your pantry and your kitchen that is not whole food processed. Identify everything that you look at when you're in the grocery store that's not whole food processed. Okay? Any questions, any concerns, any feedback?
Are we doing the app for this?
Yeah, so using the app, so if you want to communicate to me with any questions or concerns, that's where a lot of the one-on-one individual comes from. The app goes to my phone. I'm not great at always like working the technology of it, so you'll also have my cell phone number to communicate, like, hey, I sent you some stuff on the app. Why didn't you? So I can look at that, right? That's where a lot of the one-on-one comes, okay? But the app is going to be used to start putting in your food address, because when you're like, well, how am I doing? I need to be able to go in and review and see. I'd also like you all, if you're not already using a Fitbit, look at getting a Fitbit and starting to wear, or that'll work too, starting to wear it at night while you're sleeping. I want you to wear it at night while you're sleeping to track your sleep.
So like an Apple Watch is fine too.
I
right?
think
If
so.
I rip it off in a hot flash,
You can rip it off in a hot flash. I believe the Apple Watch does integrate with the Practice Better. I
Okay.
believe it does integrate, and that would be a better question for Abby. Abby
What's
would know that. Practice Better. You should have the link for it if you don't have the link already, Abby. For anything technologically based.
Yeah.
Not that I don't know how to do it, but Abby's in charge of that.
So are we supposed to start tracking our food and what we eat now, or is that
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
so start
The
doing
sooner
all the things?
the sooner you
Okay.
integrate.
Bad start this morning.
Well, you didn't take a picture of it, so you're not. That's not a bad thing.
I'm drinking my coffee going, he's going to tell me to pour that out right now.
No. We're gonna be like bit by bit and bit
Is
by
it this
bit.
one? Is that the little icon?
That's the Practice Better. And Bridget, do you have any specific questions?
No, I'm good. I just synced my watch to the app and
The Apple Watch?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Apple Watch does
yeah.
sync.
Okay.
So charge it during the day and wear it at night.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna log off for you, and then we'll be in touch also. Tell Val I said hello.
all right, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Okay. Any additional questions? Any additional concerns?
Is there something you want us to follow or do or start doing better, or you just want to see what we are doing now?
So I'm just gonna reiterate one little point, and it's not like a come at you. It's just I've done this a lot of times.
Yeah.
We overestimate what we could do in a day and a week.
Yes.
Yeah.
We underestimate what we do in a month and a year.
Yeah.
Right? Little bits.
Okay.
I can assure you that over the next 3 days, taking pictures of your food
Yeah.
and start to really examine what you're eating and who you are is going to be emotionally traumatic.
Yeah.
I know this. Starting to track and see what your sleep is like is going to be a big concept. Starting to judge what is processed and isn't is big. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's really a lot. My very first nutrition professor stood up in class, the first day of class, he said, listen, when we talk about what we're going to be talking about in this class, this is back in the 90s when like nutrition was, the FBI was still looking at, health food stores. Right? He said, analyzing what you do and what you eat is going to be as tough as a year's worth of couch-based Freudian psychotherapy. Tell me about your mother.
Oh my god.
I believe he underestimated the intensity.
Yeah.
He really did. It's intense, and
Yeah.
that's why it's going to take us weeks to go through this. It's emotionally purging. Like yesterday, I went to 2J's. I had French fries. I had a patty melt with the bean burger,
Yeah.
right, with the cheese on top. I don't even know what was in there, mayonnaise.
Yeah.
I pretended it didn't exist.
Yeah.
I could pretend, and I did that. But I can tell you that, you know, everything I ate before that, like I had a couple bites of some homemade organic free range beef jerky.
Yeah.
I had, you know, that I made at the house. I had,
You made your own beef jerky?
I do, yeah, because I like beef jerky and I won't
Yeah.
eat it with the crap in it.
Yeah.
Excuse my French. I had, you know, earlier in the day, I had a smoothie with organic berries and so, you know, like you know, I'm doing so. I go off the reservation on occasion, but you have to figure out when you're going off the reservation.
It's the handfuls. It's every little handful. You
Every
have.
little handful,
Right,
yeah.
it's
So
writing
that's
down.
what I'm
Right,
doing.
it's writing down like how many
I
times
think
you
just
went
the
back
act
there.
of tracking it